Hey everybody, welcome back to the Questions Podcast Show. My name is Michael Newmeyer, and today we have my friend, an amazing medical professional, Troy Henry. How you doing, brother?
You know what? I'm absolutely doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Dude, thank you for coming. I mean, this is going to be a good one. I know we're talking about, you know, uh, a bunch of things that you are very well trained in, very well versed in, and I can't wait to get into it.
Absolutely.
So for people listening or people watching, some of the stuff that we plan to question, get into, whatnot, is of course overall health, overall body image versus health. So kind of how like social media is treating it versus, well, what is the truth? Like, doesn't matter what you necessarily feel like or what people say. It matters what your health really is, and what doctors would tell you, not what your PR specialist might tell you. And then also probably dabble in some physical training, also explain some of the impacts of maybe, since, I mean, it's a popular topic right now, COVID, how COVID affects
Right.
all of that, and like how
Right.
someone's personal health has a advantage or disadvantage with COVID. So I guess to fire off, I mean, let's start with, overall body image. What are you seeing right now? What are you seeing online, and kind of what troubles you?
Wow, that's actually a great question. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, and it's amazing to me how much people's body image actually comes out in the things that they're writing. I actually, as you know, I'm in law school. Um, I'm part of what they call law Twitter, and I've seen several posts by people who are my colleagues or my peers where they definitely feel like they're objectified, and you can see that they have like through their wordings
Mhm.
issues with how their body looks. Like they'll say something like, "Oh, I hate this picture," or "I hate how I look in this picture.
Mhm.
If I only could lose this much weight, if I only could change just one thing."
Mhm.
So it's definitely prevalent, and uh, it's just a natural consequence of how we are as a society. As a society, we're those kind of people where we want more. We always want to get leaner, to get more
Oh
muscular,
yeah.
to get prettier, to have a better nose, to have better hair. Like
Mhm.
we always want that little bit more. So it's kind of ingrained to us from the time we're little kids. We're ingratiating to that modality of thinking.
Mhm. So I mean, that's one thing I think, with all the filters, with all the, editing and things. Like, I was on set, I want to say like a year ago. I was working on the Anthony Anderson project, and there was this PR person, and I forgot who the guest was that she was the PR person for, but she was, all of a sudden she took a picture of herself and the person. Okay.
Right.
The person, she posted that, bang, it was up, done. She had hers, she edited her face. She made like her face a little thinner. She adjusted the coloring. She, all of
Wow.
this in an app real fast, and bang. She did more work on herself than she did on the celebrity that she represents. And that blew my mind, because like her, because and she works in the business of image, you know
Right.
and so
Right.
she was hella tuned in to what she wanted people to perceive her as.
Correct. I'm glad you use that word
you know
perceive because to me that's just putting up a false image, right? If it's always necessary for you to edit every picture
Mhm.
or every image to present some image that isn't real, what are you really saying about yourself?
Oh yeah, and
What I mean, seriously, what are you saying?
what if you meet somebody and they're like, wait, who the hell are you? you
Wait,
know
wait, time out. Let's rewind that one. Let's do that one over again. Okay, Michael. Okay, Michael's he's in a relationship, so I don't know how long it's been since he's done like the dating thing or like let's say the dating app thing, right? Because it's 2021. People use dating apps. I've used dating
oh yeah.
apps, and miraculously, the person you see in the images when you meet them isn't always the person. You know what I mean? It's a person, but like it's like an image that is
Mm.
like maybe like their best angle or the best lighting that just captures them just so. So it's a kind of a I don't want to say a false portrayal, but it's like definitely putting like two best foot forward or something. I don't know.
No, it's definitely a mislead. I'm assuming guys do it as well. I know, but women are prevalent for it. I mean, makeup is, in my opinion, honestly, makeup was filters before filters were filters.
Right, right.
So makeup you could, atone and just, and I know women would be like, well, that's the same thing facial hair does for guys. And you're right. You're right. Facial hair can
Right,
adjust our face and make us look more attractive and all that.
right,
But
right.
I mean, let's see. a couple years ago, probably the last time I was like on apps and all that kind of stuff. And it was the same then. I think just the technology now, how easy it is.
It is,
Like
yeah.
it's much
Yeah.
easier now with apps and all that. Like you actually had to go learn an app. Now you can just be like hit an auto balance, auto this, auto that, auto
Right,
pretty, auto
right,
color,
right.
and someone
I
can look vastly different.
Absolutely. I think I decided personally a long time ago, like I'm gonna have some good pictures and I'm gonna have some bad pictures. Whatever's whatever. I'm not one of
Mm.
those people that I spend a million times taking a million pictures. Hey, however it turns out, it turns out. If it's a good one, yay. If it's a bad
Yeah.
one, oh well. People know it's the angle, it's the lighting, whatever.
For me, I hate taking pictures. I like video. Videos doesn't
Uh-huh.
bother me for whatever reason. For some reason, pictures, I'm the exact opposite of Barney on How You Met Your Mother. Like no matter what, how
Right.
you caught him, he would take like this perfect, gorgeous picture. I feel like I can't capture that ever really. There's maybe like a handful of pictures in my life that I'm like, hell yeah, good job, Michael.
Right,
But
right,
at the end of the
right.
day, I'm like, look, post it, share it, whatever. I don't care. Like
Yeah.
it's fine. You'll meet me in person and that's what you get, you know?
I usually am just like I'm hit or miss on
Mm.
pictures. There's some of them I'm like, yeah. Other ones I'm like, yeah, that doesn't look like me. But I
You
just
should just
accept
take your
whatever
shirt
comes out.
off. You
Yeah.
just take your shirt off. You're a buff, ripped dude. Like that's all you gotta do. That's what my on. If I were to open up my apps right now, my first picture is like me about pre-COVID, 20 something pounds ago, abs just ripped galore, just like yeah, what's up? And that's probably where I got most of my likes from was just the perfect body shot.
Right, right.
Yeah, but I had a
Yeah,
great body then. I'm working on it. I'm getting it back now. I'm putting in the work,
there
you
you
know.
go.
But man, I was looking good then, and I was definitely trapping girls.
Right. But you know what? I don't remember the particular actress, but I ran across a story
Mm,
just the other day where there was an actress and she had just done a film. And in post-production, when they took like the photos to make the posters,
mm.
in the posters, they totally enhanced her. Like they made her more voluptuous and more sexy.
Oh
And
yeah,
she just called it out. Yeah, that's what they did. That's not me. So, we're just kind of living in a society where there's these unrealistic images
mhm.
that are constantly posted. So again, it just kind of goes with our nature where we want to try and keep up. And so I definitely don't knock people if they want to filter or if they
Mm.
want to enhance because it is ingrained in all of us, and I get it.
My friend Emily, she's pretty big in social media, and she's kind of anti social media, but she still does it, and it's like a whole massive joke. But years ago, I remember saying to her like, I'd fuck your Instagram, but I wouldn't fuck you. Like, and that was the big joke because she knew she's a comedian, so it was funny
Right,
and all
right,
that, so she can take a joke. So, but it was because she like used to edit and she knows her angles, and like now
right.
she even makes jokes about how she can go from like, you know, on a day with no makeup, 5 to 10 just by a couple of angles and a filter. Like she doesn't
Oh
even have to
my
put on
God.
makeup anymore. She can just like get it done because she knows her shit and she's talented
Right,
in that regard. But she is a
right,
beautiful girl, don't get me wrong. But she can kick it up like to this like perfection Aphrodite notch if she wants to. You know?
right.
And I don't know. That seems like a lot of work to me. But the funny part is on that perfection side, that trying to look perfect, trying to look whatever. Now we, I don't understand why. I mean, I kind of do, but I just don't like it. The opposite reaction. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So now we have this far other end of the spectrum where now we're glorifying I don't overweight, obese. I don't really want to sugarcoat it, to be honest. I just,
Right,
you know what I mean? And
right.
it's some people that look, I've seen some girls that are call it thick, call it obese, call it, I'm like, you're attractive, you're a cute girl, But then I think about as a person who believes in health and exercise and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, but what's going on the inside? Like,
Exactly.
and social media is saying, oh, don't fat shame, don't this, don't that. And I'm like, I don't know if this is like, I don't know, like, is health shame a thing? Like, I don't know, like, how do I say, like, whoa, what about your doctor? What do they say? You know what I mean?
Right. That's man, that's the million dollar question right there. And that's one of those ones where like my medical hat comes on in that one too. And
Mm,
then also I have a very empathetic side too. I tend to be a person where I try to see other people's perspectives as much as
Mm.
possible. And I've also been a person my entire life where I try to be a person where I'm uplifting the people rather than tearing them down. So I'd
Of
rather
course.
tell someone the good things about them than point out bad things. Although
Mm.
obviously there are no one's perfect, not me, not anyone, no one is.
Mhm.
And
Agree.
so when we start talking about people who are extremely overweight, for
Mm.
someone to say, "Hey, embrace yourself, love yourself," like that, I'm like, okay, I hear you. Yes, love yourself, but part of that self love is taking care of yourself, right?
Mhm.
Especially if you have kids, right? If you have family members, you have to take care of yourself not only for yourself, but also for those people who you love. And I happen to know, being an ICU nurse,
Mhm.
that the majority of people who come into the ICU, they're suffering from symptoms from something called metabolic syndrome X.
Mhm.
Okay. So basically, if you're a person where you have a lot of abdominal obesity, there's just a lot of correlating health issues that go along with that. It's hypertension, hyperlipidemia, diabetes, peripheral vascular disease, cardiovascular disease. It's just the same presentation all the
Mhm.
time. And it's from people who, I don't want to say what their fault is because I don't know. I don't know them. I
Mhm.
don't know what their life story. I don't know um, what bars them from doing activity.
Mhm.
But I would never want to say that someone has to be a supermodel. But the changes that you can make on the inside of your body,
Mhm.
meaning physiologically on the inside, how your heart's beating, how your
Mhm.
blood's flowing, how you're getting rid of bad cholesterol. Those things you can have an impact on by simply doing a 30-minute walk daily. Okay.
Mhm.
So, me being a person who's super into fitness, and again, we all have our own perspectives, right? So, what I'm going to
Mhm.
say might come off a little judgmental, but it's from my perspective. From my perspective, everybody is worth 30 minutes of investment into their internal health. Okay. No one has to be a supermodel, but take that 30-minute walk.
Mhm.
There's plenty of items on the market now, especially post COVID. You can get a Peloton, you can get a rower, you can get an Echelon if you can't afford a Peloton. There's affordable ways to get some type of cardiovascular equipment if you don't want to go outside and walk.
I
Okay.
I
If you
personally do phone calls while walking. Like
Exactly, phone
people
calls
y'all
while
at the gym
walking.
make fun of me for that because I'll go
Yeah.
outside, I'll be on the phone or I'll be inside lifting while on the phone and things like that, you know?
Right.
So
You can do it, but those little things, and again, I want to be very clear on this. I'm not saying everybody has to be a supermodel, not everybody has to have a
oh, you
six
know
pack.
me.
That's not what matters to me. What matters to me is that people take care of themselves from the inside out, and
Mhm.
that's not only from the emotional standpoint, which is what you were addressing when
Mhm.
you said, "Hey, love yourself, embrace yourself as you are. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. We all come in different sizes." I embrace that, but there is a reality to if to being overweight to a certain degree, and those realities are consequential to your health.
Mhm.
And so I look at it from that perspective. And from that perspective, everybody can take 30 minutes to walk daily to change the internal climate of their body. Okay. And then this is just my theory. My
Mhm.
theory. If you're putting that time in, if you're doing that walk, if you're doing that physical exercise, I believe that you might want to eat a little healthier. It might just go along with it, you know? Instead of drinking
Mhm.
that Pepsi, maybe might want to drink a water, a seltzer
Mhm.
water. That might go a long way. So I think they kind of go hand in hand. And I think if you really truly love yourself, you take care of yourself from the inside out, mentally as well as physically.
Mhm.
So, so that being said, I'm of two minds of it. I do believe you should support people and recognize that some people do have challenges with their body that they can't control. There's some people who genetically are predisposed to being 300 over 300 pounds. That's just the
Mhm.
way it is. Their genetics
But
worked out that way.
I think part of that is, and from speaking to somebody, I have a thyroid condition. So I
Right,
have an underactive thyroid. So it helps me with gaining muscle, but it's hard for me gaining fat.
right.
So I always have to work twice as hard to lose fat than the average people. It is what it is. I'm not asking for a parade. I'm not asking for sympathy. I just got to put in a little more work. But I think there's a culture out there, and I could easily see what people fall into. And I'm asking if there's a question at the end of this, but because there's this like acceptance culture to the point of like, hey, here's an excuse. Here's a reason why it's not your fault. Here's 10 reasons why it's not your fault. You know, when nobody is shoving the food down our throat and all these people with medical conditions, it's actually not that many from what I understand. And other medical professionals tell me, and tell me if I'm wrong or if I've got bad information, but it's not everybody doesn't have these massive medical weight issues, and that's why they can't lose weight. It's typically habits, bad diet, eating too much. And I eat too much, so I'm speaking for myself for sure. But
Right.
eating bad choices, and then saying, "Oh, I need a pill. Oh, it's my I come from a big family. Oh, it's no. If your family eats 4 square meals, and 4 helpings each meal, every day, then it's culture. It's not necessarily your body hating you. It's you're used to just eating a ton of food.
Right. Okay. So I don't have statistical data to back up this particular argument, but what I can
Uh-huh.
say is from being an ICU nurse over
Mhm,
the last 5 years, and if I were to take a sample size of the patients that I see that are extremely overweight to
mhm,
morbidly obese, I would say maybe in the 5 years that I have worked and I've seen those type of patients, I have never seen one that had a medical condition
mhm.
that would be a precursor to maintaining weight. So that's as an ICU nurse working at a total of about 7 different hospitals and ICUs.
Mhm.
So that many thousands of patients.
That's a lot.
So I would
That's a
make
fair
the
sample size.
argument that those types of conditions are rare
Mhm.
based on just my sample size.
Yeah.
But I can't support that with statistical data because I didn't look that up. But I'm just giving you my opinion based on what I
Yeah.
see.
And that's, I mean, it's not like me who maybe have seen, 1/100th maybe of amount of people. You actually, that is your profession. This is your relative in your industry.
Right,
This is
right,
you seeing people who come in with problems, and it's you and
right.
your fellow colleagues' job to solve it.
I would say this is a hard and fast rule from my personal observations. The
Mm.
majority of health problems I've seen, the majority that I've seen, literally over 90% of them are preventable by lifestyle choices.
Mm.
Meaning
Okay.
not smoking, meaning having a heart healthy diet, meaning doing daily activity.
Mm.
And so those people who don't engage in those type of activities, most of the people I've seen, they fall into that 90% category. There are some outliers. There have been
Mm.
some fit people who've come in
Mhm.
there, but they're the rarity, they're the exception. So I'm
Mhm.
not saying a person who isn't fit can't get sick because they can, but that's just not the majority. The majority of people that I see that come in with diabetes, it's type 2 diabetes.
Mhm.
So I want to explain type 2 diabetes. I think it's important for
Go
your
ahead.
listeners to understand that. There's basically two types of diabetes, right? There's type 1, there's type 2. To make it simple, type 1 is the kind that you're born with, okay?
Mhm.
We're going to kick that one out. That one there happens through no fault of your own. It's just a genetic predisposition to having that.
Mm. It is
Now,
what
let's
it
talk
is.
about type 2. Type 2 diabetes occurs when you develop insulin resistance.
Mm.
Now, the reason why a person develops insulin resistance, and I want everyone to understand this, in your body, everybody, in your body,
Mm.
every cell in your body, every muscle, every fiber, they all require energy to perform their function, for your heart to beat, for your lungs to expand, for your hair to grow, for your skin to maintain itself, for your muscles to move. They all require it. Okay. And so in order for it to do that, it needs energy. Where does it get that energy from? The primary source it gets it from is from glucose. Okay, that's primary. Now,
Mm.
I'm not going to go into a big biochemistry thing here, but I'm
Mhm.
just going to talk about that one thing. It primarily comes from glucose. Uh, Glucose or glycogen is your body's stored form of sugar. Okay, so a carbohydrate, when you eat a carbohydrate, not everybody knows what carbohydrate is, so I'm just going to explain that too.
Mm.
So if you eat like an apple, an orange, that's carbohydrate. If you eat a
Mhm.
potato, that's a carbohydrate. Okay,
Mhm.
so carbohydrate, once you eat it, once you consume it, and it goes to your stomach, um, it is secreted into your bloodstream.
Mhm.
Okay, once it's digested, once it's in your bloodstream, what your body does, your brain senses, wow, the sugar level in my body rise. Okay, a normal blood sugar is between 70 and 110. Okay, so once it's in this very narrow range, your
Mhm.
body will usually, oh, if you're a healthy person, you don't have type 1 diabetes, it will naturally want to keep it in that 70 to 110 range all the time.
Mhm.
So when you eat carbohydrates, then your blood sugar will rise outside of that normal range. When
Mhm.
your blood sugar rises outside of that normal range, your brain senses it. So it sends a signal uh, to your pancreas telling it to secrete insulin. And so insulin, what it does is it runs through your bloodstream, and it's like a key that unlocks all your cells, and it tells your cells, "Hey, take on glucose because if the cells take on the glucose, then the blood sugar in the vessels goes back down to that normal range. Okay. So now what insulin resistance is because a person who doesn't exercise, or they eat lots of bad choices of food, meaning lots of sugar and super refined foods that spike your blood sugar, their body is secreting so much insulin on a daily basis that their cells now become numb to it. So your body always works on a system, kind of a balancing system. It always wants to stay in homeostasis, or the same. Everything in your body works on a gradient of keeping everything in balance. So if you're constantly secreting insulin at this high level, your cells are going to go, whoa, 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 whoa. That's too much. That's not how much I'm supposed to do. So then your cells stop reacting to insulin because it doesn't want to take any more sugar in. And now when that happens, a person starts having high blood sugars. Now, why that's bad? Blood sugar is if you look at the molecular structure, it's a thick structure. So what that does is increases inflammation in your body, which leads to all kinds of damage. And then it also interferes with vascular blood flow to smaller vessels, which are to your vital organs and to your extremities. So you start seeing people start getting kidney disorders or liver disorders or vital organ dysfunction, or you'll see them starting getting peripheral vascular disease.
All these things sound fun. Like, that sounds great.
Yeah, no, they're totally not fun, and they're totally.
But Instagram told me that I should stay 400 pounds. What are you talking? All these things. No. This sounds like hate speech to me, Troy. You're killing me. You're hurting me. No. But those are the arguments. Those are the silly arguments that people will say when it's just sadly that's the health. That's the truth. Like, be beautiful, be you. But no, this is the issues that come with the decision to stay that big.
Right. Here's my thing is I understand what they're doing. I understand it. And I'm not trying to defend it, because I can see how you can see how that can lead to some bad consequences.
Oh yeah.
I said, well, how I look at it, I try to look at it I take a big step back and go, what are they trying to do? They're trying to assess the person's mental well-being. But you and I are going, hey, there's more than just mental well-being.
I think they're trying to sell a product. I think they're trying to sell something. Hey, it's not your fault. Buy my thing. It'll fix it. Hey, it's not you. You've done everything perfect in life. Don't blame yourself. Don't have any personal accountability. Here's this thing. Here's this pill. Right. Here's this program that maybe, here's this whatever. You know what I mean? That buy my thing. That's where I think that acceptance deal comes in, or it's the part where I think people don't like to be criticized or analyzed, and criticized isn't always a bad thing. I know it's a word that a lot of people are like, ouch, it hurts, blah, blah, blah. But it's, someone telling you, like, I believe a friend or even like a best friend should to tell their friend, like, hey, you're messing up, or hey, you're hurting, or hey, you're doing this wrong or doing this bad or whatever. Just like when your parents would be like, hey, you're managing money wrong, or your friends would be like, hey, you're doing this is dangerous, whatever it may be. They should be able to say that. You shouldn't turn around and go, don't dare you talk to me like that. I'm this, I'm that. They're looking out for you because they care.
Exactly.
That's how I see it. But there's this whole defense, like, leave me alone. Don't be accountable for my life and decisions culture that I think is hurting folks. And I think with that, it's even making it where makes it easier in this country, at least for COVID, to run rampant.
Yeah, I can see the connection you're making right there. I can see the nexus.
And I could be wrong. I personally think to a certain degree I'm right. I know there's always people that don't fall in that line, people that don't fit, situations that don't fit, but I'm not talking to everybody. I'm talking to the majority, but when it comes to, so in your experience, because you're working in these critical areas where COVID's at a lot right now, are you noticing a similarity in what you see? Of course, your small sample size, you're not saying the whole US by no means, but what are you seeing when it comes to COVID patients? Are you seeing any patterns?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I can give you I personally have worked in COVID ICU for the last a little over a year now. So what I can tell you is I've worked at 2 different hospitals in 2 areas in Southern California. I'm not going to say the hospitals, it doesn't matter, but they're in 2 different areas. So two different population samples, we should say. And I can say that they're 2 different populations. But the thing that is consistent with both population samples, One hospital was in the Pasadena area. One hospital was in the Van Nuys area.
Mhm.
What I can tell you was consistent was you pretty much like 99% of the time, the people that came in, they came in with uncontrolled diabetes,
Mhm.
hyperlipidemia, and usually, not in all cases, but usually with some sort of cardiac history as well.
Did they
But the
know they
thing
had
that
these
was
things or no?
consistent was the uncontrolled diabetes.
Did they know that they had these things? Like, was this something they were
I,
knowledgeable of?
I can't. That's a real hard one to say, and the reason why I'm gonna say that is because working in ICU,
Mhm.
what the patients I see are the sickest of the sick, right? So there's a lot of COVID patients in the
Mm.
hospital, and you did have some that were walkie-talkie and you could communicate with. But by the time they get to me, they're intubated, so
Mhm.
they're not talking to me.
Gotcha.
So I can't tell you whether they knew or did not know. What I can say is that the people who we had to do what's called A1Cs on, and
Mhm.
A1C is a lab value that we can take to see what basically like an average of blood sugar has been over like
Mhm.
a large period of time. And so we can tell if a person's diabetic or not. What I can say is a lot when we had to do A1Cs, most of them you could tell had uncontrolled diabetes because the blood sugars were just too high for too long a period of time.
Gotcha. Okay. See, so that I mean, so and with that type, you said type 2, right? If I'm remembering
Type two.
correctly.
They're all.
The-
I'm gonna tell you straight up right now. They were all type two. They were all type two. Number one. Okay, this is why I'm gonna explain this too.
Mhm.
Type 1 diabetics, and they're born with this condition. So they grow up managing their insulin, and most of
Mhm.
them are really compliant about controlling their blood sugar, right?
Mhm.
There's lots of tools to help you do it, and type 1 diabetics are fantastic at it. When I was in college, I played football, and on my football team, there was 3 diabetics,
Mhm.
and they were amazing at managing their blood sugar because
Mhm.
that's something they were born with. They grew up their whole life. So the patients we were seeing were completely uncontrolled. And so my
Mhm.
guess, this is not a fact because I don't know it to be a fact. My
Yeah.
guess is these people were living with uncontrolled diabetes and they didn't recognize it.
Ah, okay.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
Or
I
the
wish
other
there was a
thing is
survey.
they knew and they just ignored it. It's one or the other for sure.
See, I wish that was something that was kept track of or could be tracked, because I'm assuming they I don't know, what do people when they come that far, do people get weighed? Do they go off of any certain like is there a I don't know, people probably aren't checking body fat and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
no, no,
but
we weigh everyone. It's
okay.
weight's very important because especially in ICU, we use lots of vasoactive drugs, and a lot of them
Mhm.
are weight based, so we have to have accurate weights. And I can tell you that out of the COVID patients that I personally saw and took care of, if I were to just put a number out there, I'd say
Mhm.
99% of them were over a healthy weight.
Gotcha, and not using
If
his
you were to take like number one, I think BMI is stupid. I
I
don't
was
like
about
that.
to bring that up. You read
Yeah,
my mind.
that's why I don't want to say that. But we do use BMI in the
Mhm.
hospital. So all their BMIs were high, but I think BMI is stupid because BMI tells me that I'm overweight. So and
Yeah.
uh,
No,
uh
you're shredded. Like, get out of here.
yeah, so I don't necessarily trust BMI, but
Mhm.
what I will say is they were outside of healthy ranges. If we
Mhm.
do have BMI in them, they're all were overweight on BMI, but just looking at them, you could tell they had a lot of abdominal obesity and a lot of excess fat. Most of them would be called clinically obese.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you see any, and this is more for my own curiosity, like what age ranges did you kind of see all this?
Oh man. Oh wow. That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked me that one. And I'm gonna say this: the youngest person that I personally saw was 27 with
Mhm.
COVID, and it ranged from I would say 27 up to the 90s. The majority, I would say, the majority fell into that 45 to 65 range for us that I could see.
Gotcha. Okay. And did you have any people? I mean, once again, it's like probably like an outlier if they were, but did you have any like really fit people? Like I'm talking like, you know what I mean? Like physical
No,
trainer
no,
fit,
no.
anything like that.
That's no. We had zero of those.
Okay. I always wonder that. And anybody I ask, I go like, did you see anybody was like,
No.
looks like they lift,
Mm-mm.
chest day, leg day, abs, like the whole
No.
deal,
No,
Okay.
mostly everyone looked very there. I would say most people looked very unhealthy. There
Mhm.
were a few who I would look at and just say, "Hey, they're a normal person, but just a little overweight." And
Gotcha.
there's a few like that.
Okay. Like a guy might be like a construction worker that works hard a
Right,
lot, but then
exactly.
comes home
And
and
they're
has
just
a
a little
beer
overweight.
every day.
I wouldn't pass by them on the street and go, "Oh my God, they're so overweight." Yeah, I would just get, "Hey, they're just
Gotcha.
kind of a normal person in their 50s, a normal person in their 60s." You know what I mean?
Okay.
Who might just do maybe some light housework or something. But the majority of them had it's definite you could call them clinically obese, clinically overweight.
And what I found kind of funny is even with I have a vastly smaller sample size. 'Cause we're talking about like my friends, my family, my friends of people that actually know. Because I won't even listen to somebody who goes, well, my cousin, like, no, no, no. Unless I talk to them, unless I hear from them or I know them personally, I'm just gonna you just made up a person as far as I'm concerned. But what what I've noticed with the people I can actually touch and tangible and whatnot in my life is the people who had like office jobs, they sat a lot, they weren't really active, they didn't really do sports. Um, and if they got COVID, it affected them more than folks who were active, went to the gym or jogged or played tennis, 3 times a week or, or had a job that was like, you know, working in a mail sorting plant or something, you know what I mean? Or UPS or whatever. Like, I know somebody who works at UPS and they got it and they're older and they just felt sluggish for the most part for a
Right.
couple of days.
On that one,
And
that's an amazing observation. And because I can't help it, I'm a very like
analytics.
analytical person,
Mhm,
and I don't like to make statements unless I know it to be completely a fact. And what I would say is understanding completely who was impacted and who was not is not 1,000% understood right now. It just
mhm,
isn't. But if I'm just giving my
mhm,
opinion in absent of concrete data, I will always make that completely clear. My opinion, absent of concrete data,
mhm,
is that I feel like it was a lot of people who had problems with inflammation
mhm,
seem to be more susceptible to harsher effects of COVID. Meaning, if you are a person whose blood sugar was constantly elevated, you have
mhm,
higher inflammation. If you're a person with cardiac problems, you have more likely to have higher inflammation markers. Now, in general, people who exercise, they in general take care of themselves better.
mhm,
They drink more water. They're flushing out the particulates that are bad. They're exercising, which are again mobilizing your body to get rid of bad products in your body. They tend to have a lesser inflammation markers. Then also what you have to understand is if you understand COVID in general, how COVID works. And I want to really make this clear. I wish I had my iPad. It's out of power. Otherwise, I would draw this
oh,
for you.
fire away, dude,
Okay,
fire
so
away,
it
go.
largely is a lung disease. Okay,
Mhm,
so basically, what happens if you get infected by COVID? It goes through your nostrils. It will go down to your respiratory system. It will get in your lungs, and it is a protein spike. Okay, so in your lungs, they're like these big sacs that have
mhm,
these little bubbles at the end called alveoli. What happens is the COVID protein spike attaches to your lungs and starts replicating itself. Okay,
mhm.
because that's what uh,
That's what it does.
diseases do. And then so those protein spikes are now covering all your alveoli. Your
Mhm,
alveoli's job is to diffuse oxygen we breathe in from the atmosphere, okay?
mhm,
Diffuse that into your body so your body can pump the oxygenated blood throughout your body. And then also to take the CO2 that's inside your body and off gas it. So there's an exchange that occurs at the alveoli.
mhm,
Now, if this is my alveoli and I need gas to exchange through it, but now I have this big block
mhm,
covering my lungs, that makes it extremely difficult to have oxygen and CO2 exchange.
mhm,
So to go along with your hypothesis, what I feel is people who have greater oxygenation capacity. Have you ever heard of VO2 max?
mhm.
So a person who's athletic is going to have a greater VO2 max. That means that they're going to have a greater ability to command oxygen in their body. If they were impacted by COVID, this is just a theory. My
Mhm,
theory is because they have such excellent lung health,
mhm.
they have a better opportunity of overcoming that deficit because they have more reserve.
Gotcha. Okay. So even if they did catch it, because I know.
Exactly. They could have definitely caught it. And what I feel is because they have a greater lung capacity and
Mhm,
lung reserve, they just wouldn't be hit as hard. Because what the main problem is and why COVID caused so much problems was it was interrupting the gas exchange between the O2 and the CO2. So
Mhm.
now there's two things that happens when that occurs. Number one, if you're not getting enough O2 in, we already talked about this earlier in the segment. O2 is responsible for all of your cellular function. So when you
Mhm.
breathe oxygen in, your lungs diffuse that. It goes to your heart. Your heart then pumps the oxygenated blood all throughout your body. And we already talked about the importance of your vital organs getting oxygenated because they're
Mhm.
the first ones to go. If you're not oxygenating properly, first thing that's impacted your kidneys, then your pancreas, then your heart. So it's like this circular pattern of your body starting to eliminate, hey, where can I take oxygen away from, because it's more important to get it to this area. So you have organs that are not getting oxygen,
Mhm.
right? So people are now having breathing problems. Then they're getting subsequent other issues such as kidney injury and clotting formation because their body's not able to perform its normal functions. That's number one. Then number two, which makes it especially hard, if you're not off gassing that CO2, you're retaining CO2.
Mhm.
So if you retain CO2, you guys ever seen that water, right? Where it talks about pH is this, pH is that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what pH is, pH stands for power of hydrogen. And that
Mhm.
basically tells you how acidic or alkalotic your body is. So the reason why that's important is because the more acidic your body is, the less likely you are to be able to have that energy exchange to let your natural metabolism occur.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. So you know how when you're running like a full-on sprint, then your
Mhm.
legs start to burn, or if
Mhm.
you're a weightlifter, you're lifting really heavy and you just can't go anymore because that burn is in there.
Mhm.
What's happening is that's lactic acid building in your muscles,
Mhm.
and you basically extended beyond the point where your body can supply oxygen to convert energy. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So that would be considered an acidic state right there. So now consider your whole body is in a extremely acidotic state. You are unable to, not only are you not getting enough oxygen, but now your cells cannot accept the oxygen that's coming to it, which again causes more problems. Yeah, it's a nightmare, man. If you're truly impacted by this, because
Yeah,
you
no,
can't do anything.
I would think it has a domino effect to hit all kinds of other things because even if you had like, say you had like dormant, or maybe dormant's not the word, but like low lying issues that maybe weren't, you didn't notice were affecting you. And now your body's going into haywire because you're already, for, let's be honest, unhealthy. Your body's already struggling to do what it's got to do for you without you realizing it because you're used to this lifestyle, and you're not really,
Exactly.
and you're not testing it. You're not pushing yourself to do any type of, you know, major activity because let's be honest, humans, in 2021, we've gotten kind of lazy compared to our ancestors. Like they had to work all
Right,
the time.
right.
They had,
And then yeah,
building
and to be
pyramids,
fair,
building log cabins, all that.
and to be fair, number one, I completely agree with your analysis right there. I completely agree with that. And also, you have to remember, if you're retaining CO2, you're going to feel cloudy in your head. You're not going to feel 100% right. So that makes it even more challenging.
Mm,
So you're not getting, so the bottom line is you're not getting enough oxygen. Your cells aren't getting enough oxygen. They start performing poorly. Your head is foggy. You don't feel well. But the best thing for you is to get up and actually move to help mobilize, to help create more oxygenation opportunities, to help your cells demand more energy, which is going to force your heart to pump more oxygenated blood, going to force your alveoli to suck as much O2 from the atmosphere as it can. That's what you have to do in that situation. But then you're right. It's having all these other effects, which is making it harder, especially if you're not healthy, to do these
mhm.
things.
I think it's like shining a light on all the unhealthy areas and this and that. Like I hear people get liver issues and people get this and get
Yes.
that. And it's like, you know, I'm assuming all it's doing is now just, like I said, shining a light on those issues and whatnot and making everything more prevalent. It's like, okay, well, now you got to deal with it. And now I wonder, this is just a hypothesis. I have no, like, I think you were saying, no, I have no concrete, evidence to back up this, to be fact, but it's a theory that I'm wondering if, you know, it's not COVID necessarily causing these horrible things per se. It's just COVID bubbling them up to the surface and going, here you go, deal with this, because now it's
Right. That's a very interesting way to look at that. And if all signs that I see is
mm,
it's pointing towards, I believe your assessment again is correct. I
mm,
believe more people who were on the healthier side
mm,
were going to be less impacted, although that's not all cases, but the majority. And you're right.
Mm,
All these things like these people's uncontrolled blood sugars or other issues that other systems in their body
mm,
that might have been compromised, but just being able to make it
mm,
where you're right. The veil was lifted off. It was lifted off, and then those systems started poorly performing without being oxygenated adequately. So I
mm.
agree with your way of thinking, and even though you don't really have a medical
No, none at
background
all.
per
Zero.
se, your kind of like intuition on that I
Mm.
feel is in the right direction.
When I think about anything and everything, I think of like logic and math or like dominoes, like A to B to C to D. Like, okay, well, how
Right,
do I get there? And I don't have to be, I may not know what the organism, is called or the this
right,
body part of this, that, but like, the thingy over here that does the
right,
that
right.
hurts. So could it be because I ran into the door the other day? It could be, you know,
Right.
I might not
No,
know
I
the
mean
fancy
you're
talk,
saying
but
it.
it's,
Yeah.
you know, so I couldn't do blood work, but I think like simple stuff like that, I think is, we can sort of not fully diagnose sorry, the cat just made a bunch of noise.
It's all
Um,
good.
diagnose, diagnose ourselves, but I think that's how I put two and two together is just kind of putting clues like
Right.
Sherlock Holmes.
That you're right, but one thing that I want to mention is we have to make sure that we don't take out the human element too. But
Mhm.
you're again, I'm not discounting what you said because
Yeah.
like you're making sense to me.
What's the human
But
element? Go further than that.
the human part of it is we don't always know what's going on with people's lives when they're not able to exercise, when they're not able to take
Mhm.
care of themselves, right?
True,
So
true.
me, it's easy. I'm single. I don't have a wife. I don't have a kids. I don't have a girlfriend. I can do whatever I
Mm.
wanted to. So when I go to I go to the gym like
Mm,
every day 12:15 I'm at class, okay?
mhm.
Right? I'm not going to miss a class because that's important to me.
Yeah.
But now, some of these people you got to recognize they have like work responsibilities, they have
Mhm.
family responsibilities, they might have extended family
It's
responsibilities.
harder
There
for
might
me. I used to go
cult,
spend
yeah,
5 hours a day at the gym. Now I can't.
right. There might be culturalistic
Mhm.
requirements that we don't know about, or there might be other difficulties in their lives that we just don't know about, which led to them being in the situation they're in. And
Mm.
so, what I want to be careful of, even what you're saying makes perfect sense, but I want to be careful of placing blame on someone, saying, "Hey, well, you didn't take care of yourself, so you're getting what you deserve." Because no, I don't think anyone deserves it,
Oh, I
and I
agree.
don't
I
think,
don't I don't think
yeah,
it's like a punishment, like a, finger
right.
wag down on
Yeah,
you for,
exactly.
you
Exactly.
know.
Well, the reason why I say that is not because
Mm,
what you said. I wanted to kind of piggyback because uh, this is no, this is just not from one particular person. It's
mm,
just a feel that I got from fitness enthusiasts in general.
mm,
From fitness enthusiasts in general, I kind of got like a snarl and well, I'm not a candidate to get this, and well, it's their fault for not taking care of themselves. You know
mhm,
what I mean? I kind of got that sense from a lot of people, and I'm not one to argue with people with their thought process,
mhm.
but being a person that working in the health industry,
Yeah.
I kind of care about people. I do.
Mhm.
I mean, I can never just sit there and point a finger and go, well, they did this themselves because they didn't take care of themselves. Because I get it. Not everybody can do what I do. Not everybody has the mental makeup to even do it. Fitness might not have been something that was even taught to them as they're growing up. They had a
True.
completely
They
different
didn't want
upbringing.
to. They didn't like competing. Sports was bad.
Exactly.
They had bad memories of it. They were bullied as a
Exactly.
kid.
They could have been made fun of. There's so
You know.
many things that could lead to a person being inactive that what I would rather do instead of going saying it saying it with a punitive kind of nature, I'd
Mhm,
rather educate people on the importance and help them understand, hey, when you make these little changes, then amazing things can start to happen on the inside of your body,
mhm,
which can help stave off illness, which can help stave off disease, which can help
mhm,
stave off heart disease, which could bring down or normalize your blood sugar to make it to where you're not even a type 2 diabetic anymore.
mhm,
I prefer to encourage people, but that being said, I'm a pretty persuasive person and I'm pretty motivational. I know that.
mhm,
But that being said, I could say this to 100 people, and I know this for a fact. I
mhm.
can say this to 100 people, and maybe one of that 100 would actually like listen to the message and make change. You know,
Yeah, because I think there's such a market out there to be like, no, don't change, don't do it, don't this, and because people don't like to change. I mean, it sucks to change.
yeah,
Like, I fell out of my good shape that I like personally being in, and the hardest part is getting back in the gym and pushing for like 3 to 4 weeks and getting past like that hump because you're like, I don't want to go. I don't want, and I love going to the gym, but it's like I'm beat up and I'm trying to like rationalize and think of every excuse possible to not go. And then after
Right.
3 or 4 weeks, I'm like, I gotta have it. Give me the
Yep.
gym. Give me, I'm beat.
Yep.
I should take a day off, but I'm sore. Like I shouldn't have gone in. I shouldn't have worked out today, but I was like, I need it.
You said you did take it easy though, right?
I did take it easy. I did take it easy.
Good job. Good job.
But I shouldn't even have been there, to be honest. But I did take it easy. So that was a step in the right direction.
Lucky enough for me, I have a schedule that forces me to have at least one off day a week.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I'm not gonna lie. That's like for people who are super into fitness, taking that one day off is so hard.
I used to, when I was like in the best shape, a couple of years ago, I would, even my off day, I was like, I'd go play volleyball. I'd go,
right.
I'd go to the beach and run. I'd go this, I would go have fun with people that was all active.
You're good. Different kind of demand. You're fine.
Yeah, now I have a kid, so it's not as, and he doesn't run, but I can run after him and all that. But still, for someone of my fitness level, that is not a workout. Other people, that might be a workout, but that is not me chasing my kid. He falls asleep before I get tired. So I got to have like that extra, that, that more. But I get it. I don't know. I just wish in this country, and I know there's a lot of commercialism behind it, a lot of big business behind it, a lot of profit, money to be made behind it for people to stay out of shape. The more out of shape you are, the more unhealthy you are, the more medical issues you have. So the more money that, the medical industry is making, private practitioners making, this and that, you know what I mean? There's no money in the cure. There's money in a treatment. So if people can be like healthy enough to live 100 years and be a great, good money bearing patient, I always wonder if that is not somebody on your level, but like way above you, if that's like their thought process a little bit is like, we don't want them to die young, but we want them to have some good issues, nice money bearing issues along the way. And I wonder if that's a thing. So that's kind of a question I have.
That is an interesting question. And I don't exactly know the answer. I just know theories. Like if you take a place like Kaiser, right? So Kaiser, they have membership, right? And so it's not to their advantage to have their members actually coming to the hospital. It's to their advantage for their members not to come to the hospital, because that actually saves them money. So I would imagine like a health insurance coverage like Kaiser, they would want you to be as healthy as possible, because the healthier you are, you're just paying money, but you're not utilizing the service. You're like utilizing the man hours or the equipment. So that saves them money. Saves them money and they make money by saving money in that particular model. Now, as far as like hospitals that I've mainly worked out, they mainly they follow HCAP, so they get like partial subsidization through like government funding. I will say, just from my limited knowledge, and I'll be honest, I've never really cared that much about it. I don't think about it. I just kind of take care of my patients and be as cool as I can to everybody around, all my coworkers and patients and patients' families. But my observation was it's very challenging for hospitals to even recover some monies that they might be entitled to because of this thing called HCAPS. So HCAPS is like a methodology of seeing what type of service was given. So basically, what the government did was they said, hey, if you want this money, this pool of money that we got for you, then we want you to have amazing customer service. And they set up this list of things that must be met. And it's like a checkbox. Like you got to check all the boxes. And if you check all the boxes, then yeah, we'll pay you. So I'm going to tell you right now, it's hard for me to think that someone's out there in their brain is going, oh, it's because we want to make all this money. Because I know how hard it is for them to actually recoup the money, because you have to be perfect. And it's challenging to be perfect because not every patient you come across has a perfect recollection of what their hospital stay was. For example, like I can tell you one of the items on the HCAP list is like, you always need to tell when you're giving a patient medication what the purpose of the medication is, what the potential side effects are, and what the medication, the purpose and side effects, and any side effects the medication may occur. So you have to tell them that. And that's one of the check marks. Now, for me, as a person that works with ICU patients, they're like unconscious more times than not for most of their hospital stay. So when that HCAPS gets sent to them or their home, how does that get answered correctly? How do those check marks get answered
That's a
correctly
good
so the
point.
hospital can recoup? It's not it's just not possible. Or you might have some people who might have like some hazy memory after coming back
Mhm,
from a surgery, right? They've had some strong drugs.
mhm,
And are they going to remember if you tell them the purpose and side effects and any negative side effects of every medication?
mhm.
They may or may not. So that being said, when you make that argument, it's hard for me to see the pathway for that to happen because I know how challenging it is for hospitals to actually make their
Well,
money.
what about not on that level? What if I'm talking like pharmaceutical,
Right.
the people that put stuff, the ones who make the guidelines. I'm not sure the words to that describe it, but like the ones who are in there trying to create these cures and trying to create this and create that. You know what I mean? Is it because it always seems like to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if I'm off base, but like watching my mom pass away and watching all the and not using her as like a tell me I'm right thing. That's not what I'm doing. Just using her as a prime example. I watched her and the drugs she was taking and this and that. And it seemed like they were just treating the symptoms and not trying to cure. You know what I mean? It was like but to simplify it without going into a bunch of detail with her, but it was like having a broken leg, but just taking painkillers and not resetting the leg, not this, not that. Just being
Right.
like, here's
Right.
painkillers and here's a crutch, and just we're gonna have you some nice hydrocodone and just have a good day. Now, again, she didn't break her leg, but I'm trying to
Wow.
think of a more simplified way to show what I mean.
Right. I can't speak on like the pharmaceutical or big tech for medical supplies. I
Mm,
can't speak on their level because I don't really, I'll be 100% honest. I don't know it, don't particularly care about it that much, to be honest with you.
gotcha.
It's
Okay. Okay.
like for me, but what you're saying, and when a patient comes in,
Mm,
what the physician's job is to do is to diagnose, um, treat whatever may be symptomatic,
mm-hmm,
and once they diagnose this, understand the cause. If they
mm-hmm,
can understand the cause, then they treat or try to fix or repair the cause.
mm,
That's what happens in the hospital. Every
gotcha.
person. It doesn't matter if they come in with the flu. It doesn't matter if they come in for surgery.
Mm,
It's like diagnose, find out what the problem is. Are there symptoms? A symptom might be pain, right? A symptom might be headache. Treat the symptoms. Now find out what the underlying cause is. If you can find it, then you treat that.
mm,
So I understand what you're saying from your perspective with your
mm.
mom. I can only speak from the clinical perspective that I see,
Yeah.
but I see the approach working as it should.
Gotcha.
For the
So it
most
might be
part.
something at a different angle, like way above that it
Right,
would have to
right,
like address with that person to kind of be like, hey, how do y'all do things? And would they even tell me the truth? I don't know.
right.
But I do wonder too,
Man.
like a doctor, for example, my mom had colon cancer
Mhm.
and I know cancer feeds off sugar. Okay. And inflammation and all that. So the first thing is she has surgery, this and that. And then all of a sudden he's pumping her full of juice. And I go, why are you doing that? Because I became a Google,
So what?
WebMD,
Google,
lawyer,
Doctor Google,
doctor, WebMD, for a minute. And I'm like, wait,
Doctor
why are
Google.
you giving her sugar? Because isn't cancer eats sugar? So you're
So when
feeding
you
it. He
say
goes, well,
sugar,
she
are you
was she
saying
wanted
she
juice. And I'm
when you
like, you know,
got
oh,
you? Okay, okay. When you said pumping her full of sugar, I was thinking like an IV, like he was
no,
giving her like
no.
D5. Okay, okay,
Welch's,
no problem.
Welch's juice boxes, just bang, 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 30 grams or whatever of sugar per hit. And I'm sitting here like, wait, isn't that
So I'm
counterproductive?
assuming she was in the hospital, right?
Yes.
She was in. Okay. So what happens is the primary physician they will order a diet,
Mm,
whatever the diet may be. It could be consistent carbohydrate. It could be regular, parade,
mm,
diabetic, uh, like low sodium. I mean, there's so many different
yeah.
ways that diets are ordered. Now, that doesn't mean it always happens, right? So I don't know what the doctor ordered, but
Well, this
if
is in the South. There's not really a big diet culture out there.
there
It's
you
like
go.
let's
And then
let's flood
another thing
ranch
is
on
maybe
everything.
the physician is older and they are, and this happens,
None of these
they
doctors were in
just
shape or
treat
really could
medically and
speak.
they don't worry about the holistic and nutrition component of the treatment, you
Got that
know?
would make sense because none of them
Yeah,
looked like they were in shape. And I'm not talking once
right,
again ripped, Mr. Olympia, nothing. I'm talking about they all looked like the most exercise they did was walk from room to room with a clipboard. You know what I
right.
mean? And not to downplay their work, they do work. I get it, but I it, And from my understanding, there's not a lot of nutrition classes in medical school at all,
I
unless
was
you
just
go down that
about to
route.
actually go into that. I was literally gonna like I was listening to what
I
you're
do a little
saying,
research. I
and
do a little bit.
yeah, and what I was gonna say is that if a physician chooses to treat through nutrition as
Mhm,
well, that's something they're completely doing on their own, and that's not part of the diagnose and treat medical kind of like protocols that they're
mhm,
taught. And some of them are interested in that. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty that are and that who do follow that, but
mhm.
that's not the primary concern is to treat disease process, and it's primarily through physical or medical, scientifically studied,
Prescriptions and
evaluated, and approved protocols.
mhm.
And so let's be 100% honest. Nutrition as a form of healing is still on the fringe. It's still something that is relatively new. There is not there's not the centuries
Mhm.
of research and development and understanding that's going into it. It's relatively new. The whole nutrition kick really started happening probably like around late 70s, right?
Mhm.
So that's not a lot of time, right? That it just really isn't a lot of
True.
time to
True.
really study. And so we've gone through a lot of transitions with understanding food. For example, if you look at like nutritional recommendations by the FDA, you can see they've completely changed just like in the last like 15 years, 20 years,
Mhm.
right? Um, um,
Sugar was
yeah,
like,
for
hey,
example,
sugar is great,
yeah,
fat's bad, you know?
if you go back to the 90s, right, they're like, oh, no fat, no fat, no fat. And now it's like, whoa, no
Mhm,
sugar.
mhm,
Because that's went into making part of America fat is the fact that we had this big craze about taking all the fat out. And so now shelves and stores are all stocked with all this low fat, super high sugar food. What's
mhm.
that we're just throwing our body sugars out of whack, right? And so so I hear what you're saying, but you got to understand that practice of medicine is something that is old as time,
Mhm.
and there's processes that are in place, and they're going to be slow to change and adapt to certain things. Nutrition again is relatively new. I don't know, to us it's not, because that's what
Yeah.
we do, that's our thing,
We
right?
focus on
we're,
gut
we're
health.
we're
We look at
always
all that.
researching the impacts of food in our body, right?
Mhm.
That's what we do. It has not, the bridge has not 100% been closed in medicine. However, there are, especially like you said, there are some cancer specialists who recognize, hey, if this person has cancer, if we starve the cancer, because like you said, glucose is one of the favorite things it likes to utilize to metastasize, to feed itself. If we limit that to nothing, we put them on like a high protein, like moderate fat diet, then we're gonna starve out. We're gonna keep that glucose out of there, keep the glucose low, so it has nothing for them to eat. There's some who do believe that. There are, and they follow that approach, but that's not everyone yet. We got a ways to go before we kind of get there, and more research to do.
That's where I kind of find it funny. I'm wondering what happened because like holistic medicine was medicine, and then
Right.
somehow pharmaceutical drugs, hydrocodone, painkillers, you know, all this stuff
That
somehow became the
Michael,
forefront. And holistic was like the funny person in the back, drunk and
right.
wasted somehow. Like, let's make fun of that person. Like, wait, this was how humans survived for thousands of years, and then now that's bad. But now we got a pump full of chemicals. That chemicals is the way. Let's do chemicals. Forget gut health. Let's not talk about
What
gut
I'd
health.
imagine, and
Just
it
take
has to
drugs.
do with what my future profession is, because I'm in law school.
Yeah, yeah.
It probably has to do with tort liability and strict liability. Now, it's no secret that the medical profession, there's been lots of liability claims that have gone
Mm,
that direction, and that's what hospitals live in fear on. And that's why, like wherever you go with anything to do with medicine, charting it reigns supreme, because
mm,
everything has to be documented meticulously because of an action. If a suit is brought, they need to be able to know all the information to be
mhm,
able to prove or disprove whatever information is being said. So what I would imagine, why you see holistic medicine, how it went out the door, and it lent way for science-based approach to everything that happened. Because if you go into a court of law, when you use a science-based approach, the court of law is going to accept the science-based approach as fact. That's matter of fact according to law, because an expert says that, and it's backed up by expert by expert by expert. So when you
mhm.
go to talk to a doctor, when they say, hey, I did this and I follow this protocol, then they'll go, okay, well, what's that protocol? Well, that was this protocol that was instituted by this governing body, and this governing body
Mm.
supported this research from this, this, and this, and had this many years of study, and this has this much efficacy, and it's backed up by numbers and data, a court will look at that and go, okay. But if it's
Mm.
holistic and it's like, hey, it's my theory that this worked, it's my theory that that's going to happen,
Mm.
the court's not going to look at that favorably. They're going to go, okay, well, we hear what you're saying, but this is backed up by fact.
Gotcha.
This is backed up by data. This is backed up by years of data. This is backed up by metrics that are just completely concrete and factual, as opposed to my theory.
But I mean, I get that. But my problem is like sugar, for example, the sugar first fat. I remember watching a documentary a while back, and it was a big thing where it was like, all of a sudden, like sugar companies all of a sudden start doing like propaganda, being like, fat's bad, sugar is great, this and that. And then had scientists come on and say, here's proof, here's this, Gatorade's great, all this, and keep going. And sugar's great, doesn't hurt you. The cigarettes were scientifically great at one point. Tobacco was perfectly fine scientifically at one point. And then one day, all of a sudden, we were just like, scientists were like, no. And then now, it's changed. So that the problem and I don't know, this is I don't know, is it was concrete in fact before, and then we find out that science was, for lack of a better term, bullshit. And then now stuff's happening today. When do we find out? I know this is not a question you can answer, but when do we find out the next thing is bullshit?
Right. That's actually a great question. And
Who's
it
at
has to
fault
do with
for that, for lying to us for so long?
Well, number one, what you're mainly focusing on, if I understand my history correct, is more marketing. So that's when marketing came into fact, and so marketing decided, hey, we're going to use these experts as our pitch people or our support for our particular product, but they're paid, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're paid, you can look at data and interpret it a certain way. But what you need and what usually has to happen, especially in medicine, is everything is done from what's called peer-reviewed studies. So you could have an expert witness all you want to, but okay, so there's a difference between marketing and like a company getting behind a cigarette and finding like a very specific company or doctor to pitch their product or to look at data a certain way and say, hey, this is okay. And what you need to have happen now is for that doctor to publish his paper or publish his findings. Once he publishes his findings, then there will be a peer review of that. And then the peer review will be the thing that sets that ship straight.
But with enough money and power, can't you? Well, hold on. With enough money and power, can't I just pay scientist A to put out this peer review, and then I pay 10 more peers to be like, yeah, Dr. A is right? Because Coke can afford that. Pepsi can afford that. Tobacco can afford that.
Well, you saw something very similar with what was going on with COVID. You saw the White House bring out some doctors to say some things that were completely contradictory to the message that Dr. Fauci and the FDA, right, the CDC, excuse me, were putting out. They were completely contradictory, and it was supported by the White House. All right. So that's an example of that. And so that's an example of the society we live in too, where people will look for the information they want to hear. They'll look for the information that supports what their particular feeling or thought process is.
Yeah.
So
true, yeah.
What my suggestion is to people like that, because you're always going to have your fair share of that, is people in general need to critically think on their own. And it's okay to get information from multiple sources. I'm not going to judge you if you listen to Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or Breitbart, whatever you get it from. But what I would say is, hey, don't just take everything you hear at face value. Okay, do some critical thinking. Understand that every person. I know this is not fair. Not everybody's had the training that I had. My first degree was in speech communications, and one of the first classes, several classes I took in communications were on persuasion and rhetoric, right? And so one thing I learned early on in my higher learning was to be critical of everything that's being said to me or presented to me, okay, from a media source. I don't care what the media source is. I'm not gonna, when I say critical, I don't mean like think negatively of it, but I ask critical questions. Okay, who's speaking to me? What's the message they're trying to get across? Now, what's more important, why are they trying to get that message off across to me? Okay. Now, if they're giving me data, where's their data coming from? Okay. Is their data compromised in any way? Okay. And so every time I get information, I internally kind of go through that process. And if I can't answer those questions, I don't take the information to heart. Or if I need to do research further, I'll do research further on my own. But I don't just listen to the news or read an article and automatically accept it as true. And what you're finding now, in society at large, is people aren't willing to put in the footwork themselves. So they'll just hear a piece of information, or what's even worse, they'll see a sound bite, and if it's
Oh
in
yeah,
alignment
headline.
with how they already think, they just take it and run with it. You know?
Mhm. Well, that there's so much that, like, I question, hence this I question everything, and I wonder about things, and then I go, what does this message have to benefit? If somebody is preaching this thing, right or wrong, which is a perception. I want to do a whole podcast on that another day, right and wrong and perception. But that's a whole benefit. What do they benefit from? But even you mentioned Dr. Fauci, and I personally don't know what to think of the guy, because I hear so much, and I don't want to get into all all the other things about him, patents and this and that and yada yada. But the one thing that I do was that is pertinent is he said wear a mask, then he said don't wear a mask, then he said wear a mask, then now he says wear two masks. And it's the part that mostly, the double mask doesn't bother me as much as the wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wear a mask part. And it's like, wait, this is supposed like the top scientist going back and forth, which is similar to sugar good, sugar bad, sugar good, tobacco bad,
Right.
tobacco good, and I'm like, well, shit, what is the truth? You know what I mean? And are they accountable for being, or does he have some sort of like government clause where he's not accountable for his findings and changing, stuff like that? Like, I don't know. Where's the accountability? And so many people were just like, okay, cool, whatever you say, boss, but I don't know, why do you
Right.
flip flop?
So I think the context around that matters. As I understand it, I'm going by memory right now.
Mm.
As I understand it, when he said don't wear the mask, and the context does matter,
Mm-hmm.
it was because of at that point there was a critical shortage in the supply chain of getting frontline healthcare workers just simple surgical masks. There wasn't
Gotcha.
enough supply.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at the context around that statement, the context was in preservation of supplies for the frontline healthcare workers. So if you look at the entire context,
Mm-hmm.
his first statement was, yes, everyone needs to wear a mask based on his knowledge of the spread of disease.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was don't wear a mask, and the context matters, because it's not that we don't want you to wear a mask, it's because we need to save it for the frontline healthcare workers, because the supply is ridiculously limited. And I can attest as a fact of how
Mm-hmm.
limited it was, because I was there when it was that limited. We're talking like I'll give you an example. In N95, when this all started, we used to use an N95 once and throw it away.
Yeah.
We're using an N95 for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Surgical masks, usually that you could switch that whenever you wanted to. You had to hold onto that thing for dear life, because there just wasn't enough to go around. And I can tell you that as a fact, because I saw it. I was there.
Were N95s on the street? And this, I don't know. This is not like a trapping question, but
No, but
were N95s
people
on the street? I just thought they were like the quick little, just like blue ones that everybody's wearing, for the most part.
No, they weren't just like on the street like that, but you can get but you can order N95s, and everybody essentially gets them all from the same place, because it was all made by 3M. So if you got everybody and their mom now ordering it instead of just hospitals, the supply still diminishes. Gotcha. So once the scare first happened, it isn't 3M's a supplier, so they're giving it to everybody. But now you got multiple locations and people now ordering masks from all over the place. The supplies just dwindled. So before, it's just primarily medical facilities or construction workers ordering N95s. Now everybody's ordering them. Yeah. And so it was based on that kind of like the context matters, is all I'm going to say on that one.
Gotcha. Okay. And I need to go back and research it and fully be like, okay, what was he saying that day? What was the full interview? And I remember watching it, but and I'll be honest, I don't remember every aspect of it. I just remember it in my head. I'm like, this is alarming, so I don't remember.
That was the context around it. And a lot of people jumped on it. He said, don't wear a mask. Yeah. But you have to look at the context. He did say that. I'm not going to say didn't, because he did. But what he did was, if I recall correctly, he suggested wearing the handkerchief or the scarf. And it was in the overall arching goal was to save supply for the frontline healthcare workers.
Mm.
And of course, then once the supply got ramped up again and supply increased, then he obviously said, go to wear the mask. You know, so that's why it looks like it's wishy-washy or flip-flop. And I understand how a person can look at just a snippet and go, oh, and question that, because you know, if I just saw the snippet, I would question it too. But I do happen to remember the context around that.
Okay. All right. I was always wondering about that, so that's why I asked. Man, it's so much. It's so much. Or what are you seeing now in hospitals? I mean, the ones that you're working in, what are you seeing today?
Oh my goodness, it's like the cliff of COVID fell off, man. It's like the ICU is empty. Now, if we'd have had, okay, so Michael's been trying to get me on this show for since last semester. Like law school was kicking my butt. And he was trying to get me on.
Easily been
but
months, 6 months,
I couldn't get on. And it was between law school and work. I was just done. I was working like I was in law school and working like every day, and I literally had no free time because I was always working. Even today, I'm taking a break from writing a paper to be here.
I appreciate it.
But if you would have talked to me 2 months ago, this story would be very different. This story would be like, dude, it's freaking crazy. It's like, it would be like, dude, literally, you can't get a room in the ICU unless someone dies, right? The ER at one point in December, January, the ER was holding patients, meaning, okay, so basically how a normal process works, if you're going to get admitted to the hospital, you come to the ER, they triage you. When you come up on your triage, they see you in the ER, then they decide whether you can go home or whether you're serious ill enough where you have to be hospitalized. Yeah. There was people who were so sick with COVID that were being held in the ER for like 72 hours. That's crazy. That's unheard of. They made a makeshift ER outside of the hospital because it was so full. They were holding patients in the ER. They were doing triaging outside. All the beds are full. And then the only time you could move someone from the ER to the ICU bed is if someone died. It was crazy. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like that. Now it's like all that just went away. It's like the hospital is clearing out, like the ICU is almost empty. We're like sending nurses home because like the ICU beds aren't full.
Playing cards now, like what game of cards we can play?
Like a month ago, we had to take over spaces in the hospital. Like the ICU, we were taking over like the PICU, and we were taking over the PACU. So we had 3 ICUs basically going, if that makes sense. Wow. So we took over 3 spaces in the hospital. Just to have enough ICU beds for patients. Now it's like, whoop, cleared out of the PICU, whoop, cleared out of the PACU. So it was like this, and then it went like that. That's the only way I can describe it.
What do you think that's from? Do you think that's from just herding, like, what's it called, herd immunity or whatever? People just gotten it, now they've got antibodies or whatever. Because there's been that many vaccines out, right?
I think it's a couple things. I think number one, the reason why we saw those spikes was because of the holidays. There's no doubt in my mind. Every big social gathering days, there's those big spikes right there. And the times when we were crazy busy correlate to 2 to 3 weeks approximately after those holidays. That's number one. Number two, I think that people who are super highly susceptible, I think that it's kind of the disease has kind of run its course. It's been through people, not everybody, obviously, but I think unless there's something just super awkward or crazy about these variants, that spike is definitely on its way down right now.
During all the protesting, there wasn't even spikes, and we had thousands of people. I never heard about. Was okay, because you never heard about it in the news, and I know you would see it before I would.
But it wasn't like the spikes of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. It wasn't the same, but there was. And I remember I actually made a comment to one of my coworkers. And like, I don't want to blame people, and I don't want to tell people they can't do their right to protest. I don't want to do any of that. But like when we start having like that little baby spike in the summer, I was like, dude, I'm just me, but it's like about 2-3 weeks after the protest right here, and that's when the spike occurred. So we did, from my observation, we saw a little one, but it was nothing compared. But you gotta understand the difference. The difference was the protests were outside. The majority of people wore masks. Holidays, game's over, you're going inside with your family
Mhm.
in enclosed spaces. So it's just it was a different deal. But there was a little spike. There was a little spike that I observed from my
Yeah.
personal perspective after the protests.
Because I was mad the media was not saying anything. They were like, okay, a little mom and pop sandwich shop is supposedly riddled with COVID, but then you have thousands of people sweating and touching each other and all this kind of stuff out and about in
Right.
protests. And once again, protest, yay, you know what I mean? Not against protesting, but the media was just like, no, no, COVID doesn't exist during these times. No, no, no. It's only if you're standing up and not sitting down at tables, and things like that. It
Right.
was
I
like,
think at the
this is
time
weird.
I was flipping between like MSNBC and CNN, and I saw a couple Fox like stories, and definitely their coverage on it, their message was a little bit different. I would say the message from the Fox wing was more like, "Hey, how come they're not talking about this?" And the
Yeah.
message from like CNN and MSNBC was more like it'd be a blurb, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, and once again, most people are wearing masks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they did it wasn't addressed with the same kind of like vigor
Mhm.
as like maybe like people unmasked at the White House. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, and we could definitely we all can take a lesson and understand that there is media bias, and what everyone needs to understand is no matter what news organization that you are consuming, there is going to be a media bias. What you have to
Oh, yeah.
recognize is that all those people that work there, they all have a boss. Their boss is probably very, 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 very rich, very, very, very powerful, very, very influential. And what that person sees as news in general is probably what's going to get done. And
Mhm.
so you have to understand that. Like, if you don't understand that, then I would challenge you to really understand structural organizations and
Mhm.
understand corporate America and understand how much power a CEO or COO holds or a president holds. If you understand that, then you can understand how media bias can exist.
Oh yeah. For example, I think if I'm correct, and feel free, folks, to comment on this, but I believe Bezos and company own, Jeff Bezos and friends own a fair amount, a respectable amount of the Washington Post. And so I don't remember the Washington Post being too negative against Amazon doing all this, much less Bezos. So, when you can always find something to bitch about and always get somebody on, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
they could talk about how, Amazon workers weren't getting paid enough for this or that, right or wrong. It could be written something negative. And I don't recall much being written, if any. And that's because, well, you know, they know who signs the checks and who they answer to and all this kind of stuff. And he probably just makes a phone call and says, "Don't say shit," and they don't.
Yeah, now let's keep it real. Okay, so prior to becoming a nurse, I actually used to work for a publicly traded company,
Mm,
and but worked as in an executive level. And even in that situation, there's just things you can and you cannot say. There's
mm.
like an unspoken rule, like the unspoken rules of baseball, right?
Yeah,
There's unspoken rules of organizations. There's things you do and do not do. There's things you say and do not say. And that's just the way it is. That's the way the culture exists. And so for a person to look at any news organization, I don't care what the news organization is,
mm,
whatever your favorite one is, whoever's listening, I don't care what it is, what right wing, left wing, in the middle,
mm.
whatever, you have to recognize that a corporate structure exists, a corporate environment exists, and there are rules to the game. If you want to get
Oh
ahead,
yeah,
that's just how it is.
yeah. And I think with all of it, it's just no. I think a lot of people don't realize that, and they just kind of don't want to, because I think it's like one step away from like, oh, that's a conspiracy. And
Right,
and I
right.
somehow the word conspiracy has been like demonized. And I don't, it's not. It's just like, hey, are people conspiring
Mhm.
to make something or not make something happen? And is it possible? And if you can connect the dots in a rational way, with a very with much ease, I would call it, you know, then yeah, it's possible. Doesn't make it true, but it's possible. And a conspiracy is really just a theory.
It's
It's
just
a
a theory. Yeah,
hypothesis. Call
yeah.
it, here's my hypothesis. And then people might
Right,
listen to you,
right.
but
It's
then
just
they'll
about
try
how
to
it's
downgrade
presented.
it. No,
That's
that's a
how it's
conspiracy.
presented.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorists and flat earthers give like conspiracy a bad name.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny with flat earth. Like I was wondering one day, I was talking to a friend of mine who believes it. And I'm like, I don't. I don't know if I found out that the world was flat, if it really would affect my day as much, you know, like
Right.
okay. It doesn't change the cost of anything really. Doesn't this? Yeah, I was lied to. This was the first lie the governments have told me. Yeah. Okay. But like I can't get to space. You know what I mean? I don't own a plane to fly around to prove anything wrong. So like okay. Like
Absolutely.
it's not one of those that speak to me,
Yeah, no, I hear you.
but
Does not speak to me either.
no. But hey, believe in facts and figure
Hey,
out and
I'm a firm believer if someone believes something, if it's not hurting me, that is totally their business to believe what they want to believe, and that's totally cool. I
oh,
don't need to change their
200%.
mind, and I don't need to be right.
No.
So if they feel good about their beliefs, good for them. If they're not hurting anybody,
Again, right and wrong is all perception. So
exactly, it really is.
all right. So, dude, I think this was really great. I learned a bunch. I hope folks listening learned a bunch. Troy, what if somebody wanted to reach out to you and, maybe get involved in some fitness, maybe do some training, maybe learn some medical stuff? Do you have clients? Do you want more clients? Do you, what all?
You know what? Wow.
Is that a
At the
thing?
moment, I don't have time for anything like that.
Okay.
I used to be a trainer, and and I've even floated the idea of starting like an online like fitness nutrition kind of thing. But at
Mhm.
this point in time, I don't have time for that. But I
Okay.
can say when I get to my 2L and 3L years in law school, I'll have more time.
Okay.
And I want to focus. I'll be honestly, what I want to focus on, because you know that I have a special passion in my heart for the entertainment industry.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
you know that already.
Mhm.
I would like to do something where it's more entertainment focused, and I
Yeah.
could maybe focus on people who want to improve their health and wellness inside that particular industry, because that's just where my passion and heart is at. Um,
Mhm.
so, but I don't at this moment in time, but Bolo in the future.
Okay. All right. I mean, I wish, that fitness and entertainment, I wish there was like small gyms on set and things like that where you can maybe
Yeah.
sneak away and work out a little bit, do a little something, something. There's been a couple of times where celebrities I've worked with, I got to use their gym a little bit with them
Oh
just because
wow,
I was like
nice.
the buff dude on set. So they're like, yeah, I'd make a joke, just kind of hinting out and going, hey, you're just gonna use it all by yourself? Like, oh, come here, come spot me, come in here. And I'm like, hell yeah,
Nice,
this worked.
nice,
And and now I get to work
nice.
out and get paid by the producers to work out. That was great. But yeah, man. Anything else? Anything you want to share with the folks? Any way they can, do you want people reaching out to you at all? Instagram, whatnot?
I mean, if they want to reach me on Instagram, they can. It's Troy dot M as in Mitchell dot Henry. So if you want to find me on Instagram, I tend to be a person where I'm super open. If you find me on Instagram or Twitter, same name, feel free, hit me up, send me a message. I am always open to talking and communicating with people, and I just love meeting people and kind of finding out what's going on with their life perspective and what their goals are. And I like to encourage people to really shoot and reach their goals. And so if they did choose to reach out to me, feel free. And what you're going to find is a person that just wants to listen to your story and encourage you to be the best version of yourself that you can be.
And I can vouch for that. Look, I wish I could spend more time with Troy, but he's just so damn busy. It makes it hard to do,
Right.
Shoot, this man, for being a single man with no kids, you would think he's got 17 kids and 4 wives. That's how busy he is. But all right, brother, let's wind this thing down. I once again had a blast, dude. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. And
My pleasure.
and I have one more important question. Are we still friends?
Of course.
There. See, and that's what I joke about that at the end of most podcasts, because the point of this podcast is to ask questions. The point of it is to talk theories and have, say some things and everybody not get butt hurt and offended and whatnot. Cause we're not out here to attack each other. We're out here to learn. We're out here to understand. We're out here to, Troy has a bunch of expertise that, I was never trained in. I don't know squat about. So like, I ask and learn, and maybe we come up with some stuff together. And my lack of knowledge, my lack of training in that area might open us both to be like, holy crap, this could be a possibility, but asking those questions can lead to great things with trained people and untrained people, as long as both parties are trying to participate in growth.
Absolutely.
And
I agree with that
that's,
100%.
and
And
that's
it's
all I'm
okay
about.
to disagree. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing
Hell
at
yeah.
all.
Yes, you can still disagree and be friends. You can still, you know, have a difference of opinion. You know, not everybody likes hamburgers, and you still be friends with a vegan. It's hard to
Absolutely.
be friends with a vegan, let's be honest. But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But salads are good. They're good, you know. But but no, you can have difference in opinions and be fine, and it's all good. Once again, just kidding, vegans. Like, I love you guys, especially Haley, if you're listening. Love you. So yeah. All right, brother. Till next time.
All right, man. I will see you at the gym, my friend.
Yeah, brother. All right, guys. Thank you once again. I'm Michael Newmeyer. This is the Question Podcast Show. Till next time.